So here we are back at our coating station on the plexiglass. The reason we're using plexiglass and not doing it on some of the other surfaces is as we apply the water, it's going to not absorb any of the water, and so it'll keep things kind of clean. So we're just going to lay this over the back, and we've tried to keep the paper towel as smooth as possible, and that way we can kind of just smooth it out and press some of the water into the back side of the albumen. And this paper towel happens to be just a little bit bigger than our paper that we're using. All the paper that we have that's cut is 7.5 by 10, so that it fits easily into our 8.5 by 10 developing trays. And so we're going to let that sit for about 2 to 3 minutes and allow it to kind of absorb into the fibers of the paper, which will help it kind of lay flat. While that's happening, we're going to go ahead and fill up our tray with the silver. So because silver is sensitive to light, even though it's really only sensitive in this case to the ultraviolet light, we're still going to work in subdued a work environment. So I'm turning on just a floodlight and turning off the other overhead lights, which will give us a softer light. It's just a compact fluorescent light inside of a studio lamp, and it gives us a nice soft even light in here in the room, but it's a little bit easier than working with the safe lights on, because the safe lights, it's a little bit hard to see the coating of the emulsion, and especially with things like Van Dyke Brown where it's kind of a yellowish color, it makes it really hard to see where you're painting or coating that emulsion. So I've done a lot of testing, and this sort of a light situation seems to not get any fogging, and so it makes it a lot easier to be able to kind of see what we're doing. Now, as we're going to be working with silver, it's very important that we are very cautious with silver. It can absorb into the skin and be deposited in other parts of the body. It can also, if it splashes into your eyes, create permanent eye damage. So one of the things we're going to want to make sure that we're doing is we're going to be wearing gloves, and I would also make sure that you're wearing goggles in case there is splashing. We'll be lifting the paper out of the bath and it could splash up, so it's best to keep your eyes protected as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and just pour in some of the silver into our tray. And over time, this is starting to get a little bit brown. As long as it hasn't turned black, it's still going to be in pretty good shape. It's kind of hard to see in here, and especially because of the darkened tray that we have as well, it makes it look a little darker than it is. So it's been a little over 3 minutes. We're going to go ahead and remove this piece of paper towel off of this sheet of paper. Once again, make sure that it's been kind of smooth on there, and we'll go ahead and move it to our other sheet of paper. And so while we're getting the other sheet of paper into the silver and hanging up onto the drying rack, this one will have a chance to absorb the water as well. Now, like when we did the albumen, we're going to want to kind of curl this back slightly. So we're going to kind of ease the edge away from, notice if there's little dips like here, that's going to allow silver to pour right over. So what we want to try to do is to take this edge and kind of curl it back. We don't need to create a big fold, but we want to create a little bit of an edge so that as we lay it into the silver bath, that it doesn't immediately allow the silver to flow over the back and kind of stain the back side. And sometimes, especially in highlights, if there's silver on the back, it will kind of show through as well. So there we go. We've kind of eased those edges, and we're going to go and take that over to our bath. So again, like we did with when we coated the albumen, we're going to attempt to place this in the bath as evenly as possible. We're going to kind of bow the center slightly so that the middle part will touch first, and then as soon as it kind of makes contact with the silver, we're going to kind of release it and allow it to drop and hope that we don't get any on the back side. Okay. And then as it lays in there, then those curled edges we can start to ease down into the silver so that they get coated as well. And if all things work according to plan, we'll have a nice, smooth, even surface. We're going to allow it to sit in there for 2 minutes. So I'll go ahead and set the timer. And as it goes, I just give it a little bit of touching along the outside edges so that it sits down into the silver and has a chance to get in contact with the albumen and the silver so we get a nice even coat. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this out of the tray. And again, when you lift it out, we want to hope, again, not to dunk it under so that we don't get silver on the back. So I'm going to start with one of the corners, and I'm wearing gloves, so it's okay to put my hand in there, and then gently lift it up. And you'll notice we now have a clean sheet of coated paper. And because we want to reuse the silver over and over again, allow as much of it to drip off as possible into the tray. These were designed to have two sides, so there's one side for hanging the silver and one side for hanging the albumen, just to kind of keep them separate. And so once most of the silver is kind of dripped off, then we'll carry this over and hang it up. And we'll use the push pins again and tack it to the cording. There is silver collecting here at the bottom, so we're going to use a paper towel and just absorb up some of that extra silver at the bottom.